Forbes 30 Under 30 winner for advertising, Thea Neal, is this week's guest. She is a talent marketing manager at Royal Caribbean, so I had to ask if her role is anything like The Sweet Life on Deck. Boom, a throwback show I know you used to love. And to be honest, the internship program she helps run is not too far off. Apparently pre-COVID, the Royal Caribbean internship was one of the most searched internships on LinkedIn. And I believe it. It's usually hosted in Miami, which makes sense why it's so well searched, and you're going to be working on a cruise perhaps. But we dive in deeper to see why the internship is so great, addressing how the pandemic hit the cruise/travel industry, arguably the hardest out of any category. So Thea's story follows a traditional mold of starting off agency side and then transitioning to client side, but I learned if you're going to go client side, why not pick the coolest of companies? So if you're interested in Miami, cruise life, recruiting, or advertising in general, this episode is for you. You can get ahead and connect with Thea by going to our Instagram account, entering ad. There you will find her recommended resources and contact information. Once again, entering ad on Instagram. Now on with the show. This is the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast. And as usual, I'm your accomplice, Gino Schellenberger. Kick it, Mikey. Thea Neal, welcome to the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast. How are you doing today, this very hour?
Oh, I'm superb. How are you?
Doing superb as well. What makes you superb right now? What's going on?
Let's see. Well, there's a really nice sunset outside right now, which is lovely. And I get my second COVID shot next week.
Nice.
So
things are looking good.
Yeah, ready to be fully vaccinated.
So the sunset is currently setting in North Carolina. We were just talking before. That's where you're at now. How is that looking? What's it like over there?
Yeah, so I relocated to Raleigh, or I guess relocated because I used to live here, 5 or 6 years ago during the pandemic, which was cool. There's some nice trees here that I'm staring at, and it's not too hot or not too cold, so it's a good midpoint between Miami, where I used to live, and then your neck of the woods up in Chicago.
Yes. Well, let's break that all down. So in North Carolina now, you were in Miami, and Miami maybe was because you are working at Royal Caribbean Group.
Yes.
Obviously, they're working remotely now, so you went to North Carolina, but you had to be in Miami, for a couple years, right?
Yeah. So I lived in Miami for 2 years. I am the talent marketing manager for Royal Caribbean Group. So I lead all of our international talent marketing and employer brand. And so my job is to get people to want to work at Royal Caribbean Group and and do all the marketing worldwide for how we get people to, whether that's working on our ships or working at our headquarters or working remotely. We have all kinds of stuff.
Kind of interesting. A lot of our listeners are looking to get jobs, breaking into the industry. You're the talent marketing manager. It kind of works out. It's kind of crazy how it's like we planned it and we did. Great. I mean, we're going to talk about this episode. We can go a lot. We want to get into your history. We'll talk about how we were talking before, you graduated from Michigan State, another Big Ten rival of mine from being from the University of Illinois. But also you're going to tell us about, having that foundation of an agency experience before you go client side. I think this is something we kind of hear a lot, like as students, and like that importance that you've actually lived it. We want to hear that experience, what that's actually like. And then, of course, we want to hear about Royal Caribbean. You're also a Forbes 30 Under 30 in advertising winner as of 2018. Congratulations. Awesome stuff.
Thank you. It's so fun with that Forbes 30 Under 30 thing, too, because I'm definitely over 30 now, but I feel like I'm just still under 30 because of it. So it's great.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That stamps forever. Yeah, you could be 95 saying that you're 30 under 30. Your current 30 under 30. Nice. but yeah, so I'm excited for this episode because I want to know what it's like working at Royal Caribbean Group. Do you get to live on like a cruise like Zach and Cody, like the sweet life of Zach and Cody?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's actually exactly like that. No, so I have spent time on cruises, which is fun. It's a real bummer because we haven't been able to sail for the past year because of COVID out
right.
of the United States. So my cruise privileges were kind of shattered by that. But I mean, it's great. I mean, I before COVID, I would have days where I could be on a ship and be interviewing people from, Australia and the Philippines and Trinidad and be, like learning about their roles. But also, I mean, you can't be unhappy when you're on a cruise ship. Like it's a really, fun place to be, and learning so much about the industry and what it's like, behind the scenes is really fun. I think a lot of times people think of different industries and think of how the tech industry is wild and crazy and like super fast moving. And I always compare that to, well, a cruise industry, like we have entire cities that are on ships in the water. So
Right.
it's just like very exciting and cool. And it's fun to figure out marketing in that point of view instead of in my previous life when I was doing, just straight consumer marketing. So before I worked at Hallmark, at their corporate in Kansas City, and I was basically finding ways to sell, cards and Christmas ornaments,
Sure.
and moving to a much, I would say, like bigger mission in marketing is really fun, and I think it helps me keep my bar really high for what I think is good, advertising and marketing.
Yeah. Yeah. I it's interesting the way you phrased it. We sometimes younger um, folk will think about tech industry as something that's super booming, and it is. And maybe sometimes we don't always think about the cruise industry or the travel industry, the leisure industry. Obviously, right now, I mean, you tell me, because the past year has been devastating for cruise ships. It's like that in air travel has been some of the most affected industries. How is it looking now, or is it shaping up to, what are the forecasts? What are the trends looking like now in the past couple weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I think the cruise industry is arguably the hardest hit industry of anything during COVID.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it gives us the ability to really control our environment on ships. We are doing so much really amazing innovation on what it's going to be like when you go back to a ship, and like it's just like very motivating to see how I'm in an industry and I work with all these brilliant people who are constantly evolving. Even before COVID, there was never a time where working at Royal Caribbean Group wasn't super exciting. Like one of the things we did is, so we know that 2 years ago, our internship program was the most searched for internship on LinkedIn in the entire world.
Which one was that?
So Royal Caribbean, to be a Royal Caribbean intern was the
Oh,
most,
really?
yeah.
I can
But instead
imagine.
of just like resting on those laurels and being like, hey, we have a lot of people who want to work for us that are, students, we're actually redesigning and revamping and rebranding our entire internship program because we're just like
Oh,
constantly, raising the bar higher. And so we're seeing, I mean, I have a lot of respect for like internship programs that are coming out of like Nike and Google. And it's really this whole like branded experience. Like you're not just interning at Google, you are like, it's a whole package of being an intern there. And so that's
yeah.
kind of what we're thinking about, moving forward, because it is an opportunity for us to, grow from this pandemic and do things better and, teach ourselves to really evolve and not rest.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, now that you got some time, there's some reflection time
Yeah.
while it might not be as busy. So you probably have more time to reflect and innovate and be ready to kick it when everything's starting to open back up, which is looking pretty promising with, you said you have your first vaccine shot.
Yeah.
And that's a great sign as well. I'm not here with a crystal ball to know when, we'll go back to normal,
Me
but
either.
I do want to, so I want to get into before we go back and throw it back to your college days and how you got here. I want to have a pretty good understanding of what you're doing at Royal Caribbean Group. So you're a talent marketing manager. You briefly went over that. So like, are you in charge of the internship program? Are you in charge of hiring people? Like, what is your exact role? Like, give
Yeah.
us the fundamentals of that.
So I always say if Royal Caribbean Group was a sorority, I would be like the recruitment chair. Like
Okay.
I'm the person who's saying like, this is a fantastic place to be, which is true. I really do like my job. And here's why I think everyone everywhere should join.
Sure.
And so a lot of my job is like defining our employer brand. I work really closely with our diversity and inclusion team to do things like we recently held some listening sessions about hashtag Stop Asian Hate and kind of like hearing from our employees how they feel about like everything going on in the world. Our public statements that came out around that topic, like those are things I worked on too. But then I also like our employer brand. So whereas if you're working at a consumer marketing brand or in that space, you're probably every season you have a different thing that you need to like brand. So for us, we still have similar types of seasons because it depends on what we're recruiting for at the time. So we have a lot of new ships that are coming out. We have different, internal tech roles where we need to hire for more. Today we had to take down an ad because we had too many applicants for this like sous chef job. So yeah, so it's like constantly just evolving of how we are approaching that marketing in a different, and it's a similar but bigger space than with consumer marketing. So I oversee all of our social media pages, which were the most followed cruise brand for our careers pages in the world. So
Nice.
Yeah, we have about 1 million followers across all of our channels, and those are specifically people who want to get a job at Royal Caribbean Group. So not people
really?
that
That's a pay just for getting a job?
Yeah.
What's it
We
called?
so we have, it's called Royal Caribbean Group Careers on Facebook, and then the Royal Caribbean Group LinkedIn, and then we also have an Instagram and a Twitter account too.
How many ships are there?
Oh, geez. So Royal Caribbean Group owns.
How does that work? I've never been on a cruise, actually.
Yeah. So Royal Caribbean Group owns multiple different cruise lines. So we own Royal Caribbean International, of course, and then Celebrity Cruises, and then Silver Sea, which is based out of Europe. And then we have some shares in some other cruise companies too. So we just own a percentage there. Overall, I probably should know the exact number of ships we have. I want to say it's more than 30.
What? 30?
Yeah.
How many have you been on? You've been on?
Of our ships, I think I've been on 3. So
That's a lot. That's 3 times more than me. And then like you can like skydive, bungee jump, snowboard, do all these crazy activities. Like they're like a world on these. These are like a city, like you said, like it's like a whole different state on these cruise ships.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's really fun to go on a ship and be like, oh, here's the horticulturalist, and here's, the hotel director, and here's the aqua like diver performer. Like there's.
Can you hire all of them? Or are you just looking for like you're marketing for all these different positions on the ship, or is it just their advertising, marketing?
We're marketing for really everything, like every role. I mean, I have days where we have to write content and create content around hiring doctors.
Oh, wow.
I have days where I have to create content around hiring housekeepers. Like it's really anything you can think of in a city is on a ship too.
What about the internship program? You said it's super sought after, and I know that people will be looking for internships. Is there going to be one this summer? Is it going to be online? Like what's going on with the internship program now? And like if it wasn't COVID, I guess.
Yeah, so I think it's TBD for this summer. I think we're waiting to kind of see what happens with COVID and everything. But typically, I work really closely with the university relations group.
Yep.
It's led by this really amazing woman named Tiffany Nesbitt, and I'm super excited to see kind of how it transforms in the next few years. And I always say the interns that I worked, I wish I was a Royal Caribbean Group intern. Like I wish I had been one. It
Sure.
is. I try to tag along to all the adventures they get to do because they get to tour ships like they get to have these big parties in Miami. Like it's just they're fun and everyone's really close
Mhm.
and they get really cool merch too. So
So
I'm jealous.
the headquarters is in Miami. They're there for
Yeah,
the summer, and then they go and check out different ships and all that, and do
yeah,
all the yeah. Like, how can you not want to do that? That's awesome.
yeah.
Uh,
And I think Miami is a perfect place to intern at some point.
sure. I mean, nobody in the world will disagree with that. I
Yeah.
mean, absolutely, absolutely. Cool. So let's dive back into that after we get into, what got you into, because you weren't a advertising marketing major in college, you
Mhm.
were in
Yeah.
journalism.
Yeah.
How did you stumble upon, this marketing side of the world, this advertising side of the world? Tell us, like, what drew you to it and drew you away from journalism.
Yeah, so when I went into college, I was like, okay, I'm definitely gonna be a like magazine writer. I'm gonna like work for Rolling Stone or InStyle or something and do like long, storytelling, beautiful interviews with celebrities, whatever. I had a few internships that were in journalism and I kind of realized like this isn't what I want to do. It was around the same time where like print magazines and print newspapers were basically like being cut down to 3 days a week
Hmm.
or digital only. And I was also, I mean, honestly, I'm sure a lot of people feel like this too, but I wanted to make more money. And so I had studied abroad in Ireland when I was an undergrad. And I told my parents, I was like, I'm not ready to go to get a job yet. I want to take a year and I'm going to go live in Ireland and like bartend or whatever. And their reply was just, no, you're not.
Yep.
So I took the GRE and ended up getting into grad school. And I directly from undergrad went to grad school. I went to Duke. So that moved me to North Carolina. And so I got 2 years to kind of get this like fluffy master's degree, which I very much recommend if anyone wants. If you're thinking about grad school, you should just do it. Do it while you're young because you're probably not going to do it when you're older. Um, and so then I was in North Carolina and I interviewed at this really cool social media agency, Ignite Social Media, which is also the world's first social media agency. And I got hired. And so it was nice because I immediately was able to like run, Facebook pages that had 250,000 fans.
Hmm.
And it was like at the peak of organic social. Like I feel
Sure.
like I worked in social media at the time when it was the equivalent of like the dot-com boom. Like it was
It was early social media when there wasn't as like influencers, right? Or like this extreme paid content from all these different competing
yeah, yeah.
brands,
I mean,
right?
it was like we just worked with bloggers and you could I mean the you didn't have to worry about TikTok, you didn't have to worry Instagram was like just starting to be a thing. It was really just like Facebook and Twitter and you had organic reach that actually happened. You didn't have to pay for all of your ads. So yes, that's
Hmm.
how I got into social and then worked at another PR agency and then got recruited by Hallmark and, did that whole corporate thing.
Sure, sure. But those agencies, if you don't, uh, so you Ignite, and then the other one was Fleshman,
Mhm.
and you did pretty well there. I mean, you rose up to a VP level. I mean, you
Yeah.
rose up pretty fast. It seems like.
Yeah, I would say that's true. I was a VP when I was 26, um, which was
Nice.
awesome. And I think the cool thing about agencies, and it's very important, I think for everyone to work at an agency before you work corporate because it teaches you a lot of how to be a good client for starters, but it also I think it makes you pay your dues a little bit. So when you're working at an agency, I think that you're hungrier. And this isn't to say that once you go corporate that you get all like bored and
Satisfied.
stuff. Yeah, but corporate there's a lot more politics and this is for every corporate job, rather than when you're an agency, I feel like everything is very straightforward. My bosses at agencies never bullshit me at all. Like they were always so straightforward. I knew where I stood all the time. But I think having that experience, you learn so much more, much faster
Mm-hmm.
than you
All good.
ever than you really will if you just go straight to corporate. So
Yeah.
once you have those building blocks, it's really easy to go corporate because you kind of have that foundation already.
Yeah. Yeah. And you learn how to be a good client, because I'm sure
Yeah.
people in agency life will experience some not so great clients. And
Oh yeah.
that's, those moments will teach you how to be a better point of contact. It's not easy being, I'm sure it's not easy being on the brand side either, being client side.
Yeah, I mean, the struggles on the brand side are just a different type of struggle, but I feel like they're easier struggles because I worked at an agency, because
Sure.
I have already, I've dealt with the drama of of having a difficult client, and so it encourages me not to be a difficult client. It
Yep.
encourages me to have more patience. Yeah, it's the two are necessary. Like if you're a person who's only going to work agency forever, you're going to have a
Good
totally
luck.
different perspective than if you're a person that works corporate forever or whatever, or etc.
When did you know it was time for you to go to leave the agency setting and go client side?
So I don't think I ever really had a moment. I got recruited by Hallmark from
That's a
Flight.
moment. That's a moment.
Yeah. The moment when the recruiter sent me an email. Actually, I mean, I would say when I saw how much more corporate companies pay, that has a
Yeah,
big thing to do with it.
that might help.
Yeah. So I was willing to move from, North Carolina to Kansas City, Missouri, a city that I had never been to, because the
Hmm.
pay was at that time in my life freaking beautiful. So,
Yeah, and I'm sure living expenses probably weren't too much in Kansas City,
oh yeah. I mean, I had a beautiful apartment in downtown Kansas City, like a loft. It
which is
was
supposed to be great there too. I think I have friends that visit there. They love it there. It's like,
Yeah. Kansas City has
especially,
incredible food. The
yeah,
people are the nicest ever.
yep,
It's a very underrated Midwest state
sure, yeah.
city.
I think it's a hidden gem for sure.
Yeah.
There's a VML Y&R is also over there.
Yeah.
There's some big agencies like stationed. I think there's Barkley is
Yeah.
over there.
And they're great agencies too. Like
Yeah,
I have nothing but respect for
it's a
them.
sneaky little advertising marketing hub that not a lot of people think about. So
Right.
that's like a little insight right there. So
Yeah.
you said the pay was good, and were the
Yeah.
hours a little bit better? I mean, like, was it more 9 to 5 culture, or are you still just working? Everybody just works all the time, I feel like.
I will agree with you on that. I feel like when at this point my friend calls it the CEO mentality. So it's the CEO mentality of when you become a CEO, you can actually stop working at 5. This might be a pipe dream and something we made up, but
Mhm.
whenever we actually stop working at 5, we're like, oh, it's our CEO mentality today. And so I just feel like none of us really have the CEO mentality anymore, especially with COVID. We're all just like working our asses off.
It's
Um,
bullshit. It's bullshit.
yeah. So can't
Yeah.
really speak to that work-life balance.
Yeah. I mean, you just got to figure it out on your own, what works best for you, and that takes time. I know
Yeah.
I just started, and it's not easy, and you just got to figure out what's right for you and prioritize properly and know when to put it down, especially now in the COVID world, because the
Yeah.
computers, this is my bedroom you're looking at.
Oh,
I,
I have a background up, but you would be seeing my
yeah.
guest bedroom. So yeah.
Yeah, it's like literally like it's just where you're at. It's just nonstop. But if
Yeah.
your boundaries are important, and you'll everybody learns that. It just takes some time. But
Yeah.
good. So the Hallmark, and you did that's where you did your Forbes 30 under 30 work, right? You're a legend there.
Yeah.
What is that? I mean, how did you get that? Did you make like a really cool card? Just messing.
I wish that was how I got it. That'd be a much cooler story. So the Forbes thing was wild, and I have to prerequisite with I never was a person who was like, my goal is to be on the Forbes 30 under 30 list, because
Yeah, yeah.
there are many people who apply from the time they're 26 until the time they're 30, and they I'm sure lots of them deserved it more than me. Um, my story is that I had a friend of a friend who I'd never met before who reached out to me, and he was like, "Hey, I was on the Forbes 30 under 30 list the year before, and I was wondering about nominating you. I've heard you've done some cool stuff." And so I was like, "I've never met this guy, whatever, sure." And so he ended up nominating me, which didn't really make a
That's
huge
nice.
difference. Yeah. But then once you get through a certain round, you fill out a bunch of content, a bunch of like a questionnaire. So I filled out that and then had a few other recommendations of folks who
Jeez.
sent letters
You
along.
get money or something from this?
No, no, that's a
It's
fun thing
just
about Forbes is you get absolutely nothing. You get a free
it's
ticket
good.
when you to go to the summit, and
Oh,
that's
nice. Where's
really
that
it.
at? Where was that at
The
for you?
first year it was in Boston, and then the second year I went was in Detroit.
You went twice?
Yeah, so you can go for free as a list maker forever.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah,
Where
um,
was it at? Sorry, what were the cities?
Boston and Detroit.
Gotcha.
The Detroit one was really fun. And it's fun too because you get to be on the floor for the concerts. So
Sure.
we saw like chain smokers and like Normani, and they were like 6 feet away from us. And so that was
Nice.
fun.
It's
Yeah.
kind of like a hall of fame for partying,
It
having fun.
honestly 100% is. That's a perfect description of like the Forbes 30 under 30 summit. And if you didn't make the list, or you didn't apply, you should still go because it is I mean, there are talks all day long and you
Gotcha.
meet so many really fantastic people. Like I have a lot of friends from the list that I've made at that and that I
Mhm.
just like networked with. But yeah, so ultimately, the wild thing for me is they don't tell you when you're filling out this survey that the answers, if you're chosen, those are your answers that go on the website.
Oh, great.
So I was kind of, I don't want to say like half assing it, but I was kind of like, my personality is very like joking. And so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they were like, "Oh, who's your dream person to have at dinner?" And I was like, "Beyonce." Like if I knew that
Hey,
those were
mine
going to
too.
be, yeah, if I knew those answers were going to be written down forever, I probably wouldn't have put them in. Um, so yeah, so you don't know that you're making the list
Mhm.
until the list is live. So I had another friend that was nominated too, and so we both just refreshed the page that morning, and I was just very shocked that I was on it. And so then and I think I still have, but like had lots of like imposter syndrome about like,
Oh, yeah.
oh, you deserve to be on this. Did they pick you because you're Hispanic and you live in the Midwest and you feel this like fun little niche demographic? I don't know. But it's a great opportunity, and I'm really happy that I had it. And I got on it because I did honestly like do some really badass work around influencers at Hallmark. And
What'd you do?
so basically, I led our influencer work for our retail stores to get people to, of course, shop at Hallmark Gold Crown for for the holidays.
Yeah. What
Uh,
influencers did you
yeah.
work with?
Oh man, lots. I mean, we had, I think at a time, I mean, I worked with probably like 40 different influencers.
Did you meet any of them or you just contracted them out?
Yeah, yeah, but lots of them are, Hallmark
Sure.
mom influencers. So there's no
Yep.
one I think you'd be familiar
No
with.
worries. I've had a lot of trouble. I was researching dad influencers.
Oh, okay.
There's like four of them, and
Yeah,
there's none
that
of
is
them.
a market that there should be more of.
Dadfluencers.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Couldn't
we
find
should,
them.
if you're listening and you're a dad, you should make a like cute blog or
There's a
Instagram.
couple of them. I just think they're really lame.
Yeah.
Like the content is just like it's not as established as the mom influencer cult. They do a great job, and everybody wants them to work with them. So it's
That's true.
a little
That's
insight. So
true.
dad influencers, you heard it here first. We're gonna make that thing
Yeah.
famous.
Yeah.
Cool.
Market
So
up.
you've done great work, and that brings us to where you're at today with Royal Caribbean. There might have been some stints in between, but we're running low on time. I want to get your opinion now on you had a great career so far and a great one to come. To the student that is in, they're either undergrad or recent grad.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for them going into the industry? We're advertising, marketing, PR, maybe even journalism. Like, what advice do you have
Yeah.
in your career that you can give to them now that you wish you would have known?
So I think a couple things. My
Mhm.
first piece of advice is get even if after you graduate you don't have a full-time job offer, but you get an internship offer, take the internship offer. Because I had a full-time job offer at Michigan State and I didn't really want to stay in Michigan. Like I wanted to do something else. And so I got an internship offer with the US Department of Agriculture Forest Service in Washington, DC, and I ended up taking that. And I think that really helped me find other jobs after. Like, I don't think I would have gotten my Ignite job if I hadn't had like that internship somewhere else. So don't be afraid to take internships.
Mhm.
And then my second thing is, especially with if you're in college right now, and I've spoken to a lot of different classes from different universities over, COVID.
Sure.
And even if you're like on your computer on Zoom at home, try to go to the talks that are optional. Because if there's I usually be networking with everyone. Like, and I have students that reach out to me and they are like, "Oh, I paid attention to your talk. Like, can I ask you questions for 30 minutes?" I am so much happier and so much more likely to want to recommend one of them for something than I am if they never reached out to me. So
Yeah.
if you have even just like 20 minutes, reach out to someone that you listen to speak, that you think their job sounds cool, or even if you don't care about their job, like do it anyways, because they probably have connections to someone who does have a cool job, and you
That's a
can
good
tell them
point.
what you're looking for and then find it that way.
That's a
So
great point. That's a great point. People that stick around after like presentations, I've done a
yeah.
couple panels too, and the students that stick back and they ask like they're like, okay, like anybody want to stay back and ask questions, you can do
Mhm.
that. There's like 3 people every time of
Yeah.
50 that will stay back, and then you're just more likely to get to know them, connect with them, and then you like them. You like them because they took an interest in you, whether it's true or
Exactly.
not. Hopefully, it is. You like them more.
And also, like, if it shows that you're willing to do 5 extra minutes of work, which is a very employable talent. Like, if you're
Yes.
willing to just spend 5 minutes to do something extra, like, that's fantastic. That shows that you're gonna be good at, whatever internship or job someone's gonna offer you.
Absolutely. What's your next steps? Are you so you're at Royal Caribbean? What's kind of like do you envision going back client side anytime in your life, or not client side, agency side at all?
I don't know about agency. So I really love my job at Royal Caribbean, and I'm staying here until they tell me I can't. But in my free time, I am launching a gardening startup
Oh
called
yes, forgot. Yep. Tell us
yeah,
about that. Yeah.
called Sagano, which is named after the most beautiful forest in the world in Japan. And so we've developed a vertical gardening system, which is basically a pole with a bunch of different stacked planters on it. So you can take a 16-foot garden and put it into 2 feet. And
Nice.
yeah, plants are like a passion of mine. I love plants. And so it's very fun to like develop a product, develop a brand, do the
Hmm.
marketing.
Start from
Um,
scratch.
yeah, and for something that like I already really love.
Yes.
So yeah,
So
so I
that
think
might that
that.
might grow in that might blossom into
Yeah,
a full-time, opportunity. So very nice. Best of luck
yeah,
with that. Cool. Send us that information. We'll link to that. Any
thank you.
resources that you follow pretty consistently that you want to recommend? If not, you don't have it on the top of your head, we can just include it into our Instagram graphics. But anything that you follow pretty consistently that you can think of?
So I don't like to I shouldn't say I don't like. I'm not good about following like ad week and all of that stuff
Yeah,
constantly.
it's boring.
Exactly. But there is a Twitter account that I think is hilarious, and it's called Female Copywriter. And
Okay.
then female is spelled without an E. And they're just very, very, I don't know who runs it. It's definitely someone that works at an agency. And all of the tweets make me laugh really hard. And they're just really snarky, like sassy, hot advertising takes. And so I
Yep.
appreciate that. You should follow it.
Cool. Will do. Great. So
Yeah.
thank you for having us on. If they want to reach out to you, LinkedIn, best way to do it, or email, what do you prefer?
Yeah, LinkedIn's great. I check those messages all the time. Or just, yeah, whatever works for you. I mean, I'm on all the socials, so Thea
Okay.
Neal, just find me.
We'll do LinkedIn then, and tell them breaking and entering sent you, and
Yeah,
you'll be more likely to respond, I'm sure. But
that's true.
this has been great. This has been great advice. Your
Yeah,
story is awesome. You have some interesting experience. You've had some success, so we can all learn from that. Thank you for coming on.
of course. Thanks, Gina.
Cool. Thank you all for listening to this entire episode of the Breaking and Entering Advertising podcast. I hope you enjoyed this week's guest. Make sure you go and connect with them on LinkedIn. Tell them that Breaking and Entering sent you. Now, thank you to Mikey Malarkey, our audio technician, and Buchun Zhang, our creative director, as well as the student team from the Midnight Oil Agency at the University of Illinois. Can't do it without you all. Thank you very much. We will see you all next week with another amazing guest.